Well, I just want to say welcome to each and every one of us here present, and also for those of us joining online. Uh, we will pick up where we left off last Sabbath, and just a short little introduction. My name is Salvador Gomez, and um, we are studying the first angel's message of Revelation 14, 6, and 7. There's a whole lot that we have been going through. As you can see, we're on part 13 with this presentation, and we still might have a couple more parts to go. But I just have to say that I'm extremely blessed to go through this, and the Lord has refreshed my memory and has blessed me with uh, more information that I wasn't aware of, and so it's a blessing to go through it again. And I hope that you all will be blessed as well. And so we're going to study, um, or we're going to look at either way you want to put it, um, the virgins illustrated in the Great Advent movement. And if you remember, we made a line beginning with the time of the end all the way down to 1844, October 22nd. And so we're gonna look at that same line, um, but we're going to see how the parable of the 10 virgins are applied within that time frame. Does that make sense so far? Yeah? Okay, perfect. I know that Tomas, you'll be the one to let me know whether or not I'm able to explain something, because I know you're not able to see it, but you're able to hear it. And so, beginning a little bit before the time of the end, we saw that the Lisbon earthquake took place in 1755. Persecution had almost ceased in 1773, and then July 4th, 1776 was the Declaration of Independence. And so it was around this time, um, well, let me also add, May 19th, 1780 was the famous Dark Day. All of these things happened according to history, and we see that um, Matthew 25 verse 1 says that they went forth, right? Let's open our Bibles really quick to take a look at it and make sure that we are reading and saying the same thing. Matthew chapter 25, the parable of the 10 virgins, and it says, verse 1, "Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom." And so we're seeing that in 1798 was when they went forth with their lamps to meet the bridegroom, right? In 1798. Okay. It was at this time that Daniel says that many shall run to and fro, which means that they will be studying the Bible, and the this little book would be unsealed, the book of Daniel, speaking of the time, and time and a half. Okay, so Matthew 25 is when they went forth. In 1831, William Miller begins to publicly speak about the coming of the bridegroom, the coming of Christ. Then November 26, 1833 is the falling of the stars. Joseph Wolfe arrives on the scene, 1837. Then August 11th, 1840 was the fulfillment of that second woe that was had come to an end or was restrained. Okay. May 1842, the 1843 chart was devised by the leaders of the Advent movement or the Great Advent movement. And we saw that there was a purpose that was sealed. Remember that test? During the tarrying time, it was made known what was that purpose of that test, that the foolish would be revealed. And so that's Matthew chapter 25, verse 5 is the tarrying time. So let's read that. It says, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. Okay, so there was an apparent tarrying time of the bridegroom, right? And it says that they slumbered and slept. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then 3.5 months later came the midnight cry. Let's take a look at the next verse. Verse 6. And at midnight there was a cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. This took place on July 20, 1844. Okay. This was called the midnight cry message. Then we have another three. Then the fall of Babylon, 1844. Matthew 25:9. There was a separation. Okay, so let's take a look at that. But the wise answered, saying, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell and buy for yourselves. So so they were separated, right? They had to go. The foolish went to those that sell, and the wise continued, right? So there's a separation. Okay. Another 3.5 months. Matthew 25:10 was the shut door. So let's take a look at verse 10. And while they went to buy, speaking of the foolish, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Okay. So shut door took place on October 22nd, 1844. Now, as to what the shut door is, we're going to study that when we get there, okay? Because what they thought that shut door was, October 22nd, 1844 was when the shut door took place. What the Adventists thought it was at that time, because they thought Jesus was coming, was the close of their probation. ¿Qué significa AD? AD is después de Cristo. Oh. Okay? So they thought it was what? The close of the probation of the foolish, of those that rejected the message. Does that make sense so far? Mm-hmm. All right. And we saw that this time span from 1798 down to October 22nd, 1844 was 46 years. All right? 46 years? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. From 1798 to 1844 for 46 years. October 22nd, 1844. Now, there is something here that I want to share. This time span from 1798 down to 1844 is the history of the United States
en ese tiempo,
Ajá.
todo desde
All of this
1755.
from 1798. Actually, if we want to go back to,
1798.
if we want to go all the way back to the Declaration of Independence, it's all the way in 1776, July 4th, right? Okay. And so this great Advent movement was took place on American soil, right? At its commencement. Did you hear me? At the commencement of the history of the United States, this great Advent movement took place. En los inicios del
avivamiento,
el gran revivamiento tomó lugar en los inicios de la historia de Estados Unidos. Now, would that be important? Yes, right? Why is it important?
Pues porque tenían que empezar a avisar que iba a venir Cristo, ¿no?
Eso,
tenían que estar preparados.
Eso es parte. The reason why that's correct. It's a fulfillment of prophecy. Se cumplen las profecías. The prophecies were fulfilled here in the United States. Okay? Each and every one of them that we mentioned. Maybe if the Lisbon earthquake, if I recall, I don't think it reached the Americas. I'm not sure. But it was mostly in Europe, right? That the Lisbon earthquake took place. However, that was you can call it an announcement, right? Because we read about the turning points in history. That when a crisis arrives, then light is given at that time. Now, for the most part, from 1776 forward, everything else is related to the history of the United States. The history of the United States. Okay. Uh-huh. And if you remember, William Miller's testimony about what had taken place with the Battle of Plattsburgh, he saw that it was a divine hand that was not only taking care of his life, but also taking care of the land, the United States. That God was protecting it. That's what he saw, right? Now that's going to be very important because all of these prophecies, they relate to the United States and how God would gather a people here in this land. Okay? And so being that God protected it for a purpose, so that William Miller can give this message, he also wanted to bring a people together. Right? He was gathering some people. Remember, according to Leviticus chapter 26, that there would be scattered. They would be scattered, and then also there would be some gathered. Right? That would take place at the end of the prophetic periods, which is October 22nd, 1844. At that time is when the gathering would begin. Beginning first here, because this is where the prophecies were fulfilled. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so, because of all of this history, it's going to be important to know how far God leads. Okay? And it's all in relation to what took place here. The importance that God is giving is that all of this history involves the United States. This is all going to be important.
Cómo es que se involucró, ¿verdad? Estados Unidos con la...
As a matter of fact, if you remember, Joseph Wolfe was William Miller's contemporary, and even though he was from a different land, he had traveled all the way to the United States. In 1837, he began to preach here, first in New York, and then he made his way to Philadelphia. Then after that, he went to Washington, D.C., the Congress, and he preached to them all of these things. Same message that Miller was given, right? And so not only is the prophecy or not only is the United States involved in that the prophecies were fulfilled here, but that the prophecy was actually given to the Congress at that time. You see that? That's important. That's very important, because the message, it wasn't like it looks like today. Nobody knows about it right now. It's like we're having to go back, undig this, understand it, and give it again. Okay?
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. There's God's providence in this right now that's happening. We are recreating history, you can say. All right. So all of what we just shared about how these prophecies were fulfilled, mainly here in the United States, have much to do with what we're going to study under the third angel's message, and we're going to see why once we get there. Okay. But for now, just wanted to have that little side note. Let's go forward. Now let's read about the midnight cry. Notice what it says. At midnight, and let me just go. Well, no, it's gonna take too long, so I'll just go forward. You saw where that line was. At the midnight cry is speaking of that event. It says, at midnight, a cry was raised. The bridegroom is coming. Go ye out to meet him. Then all the virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. We have already shown that the tarrying time for the bridegroom by the prophetic periods was 6 months, beginning the 19th of April down to October 22nd, 1844. The midnight of the dark stupid time would be about July 20th. S.S. Snow gave the true midnight cry in the tabernacle in Boston at this time, and it was received by the virgins in a different light from whatever was before. He says he had been trying to make people believe it before. Now notice this. He's saying before July 20th, 1844, he was already trying to share it. He was already telling people about it. But notice what he says. He had been trying to make people believe it before, but without effect. That means that people weren't ready for it. They weren't able to receive it yet. But notice, because it was generally believed, as we had been taught from 1840, that the midnight cry embraced the whole subject, even beginning back at the French Revolution was 1798. And some were old enough to believe it had begun in the day of the apostle, but now it began to move with rapid progress. God was giving the light by his spirit. I will remember some that I conversed with who related the wonderful manner in which they were moved upon to examine this subject before they had heard it. Okay, so God wasn't impressing their hearts before that on the point of the midnight cry, because it wasn't time for it to be given. Does that make sense? So this specific time, July 20th, was the exact time when they were to be ready to receive the message in order for them to truly understand it and embrace it and start repeating it to others. Okay? Let's go forward. Babylon is fallen. This is the second angel's message. About this time, August 1844, 10,000 extras of the Voice of Truth containing the editor's SS Snow and Geo Store's exposition were published, showing what was Babylon and her fall. This presented the subject in so clear a light, and in accordance with the teachings of the Spirit, that it was clearly seen that Babylon, the great city symbolized by a woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns, represented the existing organized churches, which had no churches, more than one, which had now fallen in consequence of rejecting the doctrine of the second advent of our Savior. And remember, it wasn't the second advent itself. They weren't rejecting that Jesus was coming, but the time, the exact time what they were rejecting. They said, 2,300 days, no, 7 times, oh no. They didn't want to hear it. So they knew that Jesus would come, but just the specific time was what they had rejected. Okay. Now, which was now being given by the messengers that were flying through the mist of heaven. This is the first angel. Just as the Jewish church fell by the rejection of the first advent, so the illustration that we're given right here is that just like the Jewish church fell, remember 34 AD? Remember they lost their position as God's people, right? And so right here is the parallel. At the second angel's message, do you remember when it was? No?
2 months. No, I don't know.
Okay.
31, 34, and 43.
So the parallel 34 AD parallels with the second angel's message. Okay? Remember, the Jewish church was no longer to be God's people.
Right.
So those churches that rejected the first angel, they could no longer be God's people. Right here. After the midnight cry,
It's the first message.
August 1844 is the second angel.
Oh,
Babylon is fallen. Okay?
Babylon fallen.
When they
The
separated,
second angel?
this is the second angel right here. August 1844. So it parallels with the rejection of the Jews. Okay? Just like the Jews are also no longer God's people. It took place when? AD 34.
18.
AD.
Oh, 80.
AD 34.
1834.
No, AD.
Oh, AD. Okay. AD. 30.
34 or 34 AD, however you want to.
34.
Okay? So just like the Jewish church lost its position as God's people at that time, likewise, August 1844, the churches that rejected this message by Miller had also fallen in the same sense.
Wow.
That means that they are no longer God's people.
Wow.
Okay? All right. I know it's a lot of numbers.
Parallel.
It's a parallel. Yeah. Okay. So, and it says if we want to see how it was that the Jewish church fell, or the reasons for that, we can read about it in Matthew, the 23rd chapter. Okay, we're not going to do that now. Maybe at a different time. Now we're going to take a look at the woe trumpets. Okay, remember we talked about this? Yep. Remember on the chart, there's trumpets, right? There's angels with trumpets on it. We'll look at it here in a bit. Okay, but let's read this for now. It says, the prophecy in question is the 9th chapter of Revelation. Okay, notice the date. It says here, this is from the Signs of the Times, August 1st, 1840. Okay, 1840, August 1st. Right? August 1st. Yeah, that's when this was published. It says, that chapter is by general consent applied to the Mohammedan religion. Which chapter? Revelation chapter 9. Who are the Mohammedans? Mohammedans. Okay, okay. From Arabia, correct. But what is it referring to? What is when we talk about Mohammedans? Is it pointing to a culture? Is it pointing to a race, or is it pointing to a religion?
Religion.
It's a religion, okay? The Mohammedan, the Islam is another word, okay? All right, now, and the Ottoman government as a rising out of the Mohammedan system, okay? So at first it would be Mohammedan, and then it would become Ottoman, okay? The difference from the Mohammedan and the Ottoman is very simple. Ottoman or Mohammedan was before they had a king, and they organized, you can say. Mm-hmm. And the Ottoman is when they had a king over them, and they were organized.
And who was the king then at the time?
Who became this
First king then?
the first king? I know.
I'll just a question. No, we'll get it later.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Okay. I don't think I have that specific answer now, but we could definitely find it later. Okay. So the Ottoman government, as a rising out of the Mohammedan system, and then says right here in Revelation 9 and 8. I mean, Revelation 9 verses 7 and 8. And the shapes of the locusts, notice the description that it gives, okay? It says, and the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses. Okay, so they have horses prepared unto battle. Okay. And on their heads were, as it were, crowns like gold. And their faces were like the faces of men. Okay. So what's the difference between a man's face and a woman's face? What distinguish?
The hair.
Well,
the hair. The hair where?
The face.
On the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the main thing right there.
Yeah.
So these men would have hair on their face in order for them to be able to distinguish, right?
Yeah.
It also says that they have crowns, mm-hmm. and it also says that they have horses. There's a reason why they were likened unto the locusts, right? Have you ever seen locusts before? No? Yeah, you've seen one?
No, I've seen it on TV.
You've seen it on the TV? Have you ever seen them when they're all flying together?
Yeah, they destroy everything again.
Okay. So the reason why they're locusts is because of the way they go.
They're synchronized. They're all.
I guess you could say synchronized, but the word I'm trying to find is more like they travel in hosts,
yeah.
In grupos,
yeah,
in groups.
Like
is that's the way they go from place to place to find food.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the reason why they're likened to the locust because they go in large
description.
in large groups. In large groups.
Kind of symbolic.
Yes. Okay. So, and it also says, and they had hair as the hair of women. So under that crown that they have, they would have long hair. See? Okay, so this is giving us a clear description of who this can be. All right? So it would be a religion. They would have crowns. They would have hair on their face. Okay? And they would have long hair under the crown. It says that they have the teeth as it were as the teeth of lions. I believe that's how they attack in battle. Okay. Do you see the here on the chart? We have see the angels with trumpets. Okay. We have the trumpet. All right, and then right next to that we have horsemen. Do you see the way they dress?
Blue.
We're dressed in blue, but look at the. Do you see the crown?
Yeah.
Turbans. Right. You see the hair on the face?
Yes.
Right, and there's the horses. And so, if we were to see them in their groups, they would be like hordes, right? A bunch of men like this, traveling in groups, right? Okay. This is why they are likened unto the locusts. Okay. Now, this is what we're going to study. The prophecies of Revelation, chapter 9. We're going to look at the time prophecies. As you can see right here under 606, it says the rise of Mohammedanism. The power stood not up against the Prince of Princes because it did not exist until this period, Revelation 9:1, when the star fell. And so that would be Muhammad, that falling star. And then we see 1299 or 1299. It says Revelation 9:3 to 12. And there came out of the smoke locusts, and their power was to hurt men 5 months, i.e., 150 years, commencing at 1299, ending 1449. Okay? And so these men that we see here, the Mohammedans, began to hurt men, that is, men that were pagan. That's who they attacked. Okay. If anybody knows anything about Islam, they are a scourge, you can say, or a plague. In other words, we can use to attack unbelievers, people that do not believe in their one God, Allah. Right? Allah. And so they go about forcing men to believe. That's the purpose of their religion. That's, if you were to study anything about them, they do what's called holy war. Holy war. They are given, according to their beliefs, permission to attack, destroy, kill men that will not convert. All right. Now, keeping that in mind, we're going to study this prophecy right here. It already gave us the answer. If we were to count from 150 from 1299, that leads us to 1449. And these 5 months, how many days are in a month?
30. Maybe sometimes 31, sometimes 20.
They're 30. You were right the first time. 30 because it's biblical. We're talking about the biblical month. Okay? So this would make it prophetic. biblical. So 30 times 5,
150.
that's 150, correct. And so if you count 150 years, because each day is a year, 1299 plus 150,
You said 14 something.
1449. Yeah, it's on the chart. It's right there. 1449. Okay. Now, um, from that time, there was going to be a restraining of the second wall. Okay, this is the first wall right here.
Okay.
This trumpet right here, the Mohammedans, it says Revelation 9:7, the shapes of their locusts, with the same thing that we just read. It's referring to that time. Um, it's actually Revelation 9:3-12. Okay, so now we're gonna read about the second wall. Okay, and this is that time period that was marked on the time of the end graph. The time of the end, it talked about the different events.
17,
That was
98.
1798. That's the time of the end graph. But we're gonna talk about a specific event that took place, a remarkable event that took place within that time. Okay, relating to the Ottomans. Okay, it says the sounding of the fifth apocalyptic trumpet, Revelation 9:1, and the accompanying event is believed to represent the rise of the Mohammedanism. Okay, and a host of warlike armies. See, remember that host represents the locust by which the religion was propagated. These armies were for several countries. Oh, excuse me. These armies were for several centuries led on by the chieftains of the several clans into which they were divided. But in one of the 13th century, the different factions of Mohammedanism were gathered under one leader or king and formed the general government, which has continued to the present time. I mean, the Ottoman or Turkish Empire. Actually, Ottoman represents that king. Ottoman. That's why it's called Ottoman, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll fact check that. Okay, we'll make sure that we're correct. Turkish because it's in Turkey. Okay, that's where they were organized under that king. From the time of this organization under one leader, and he both a temporal and ecclesiastical ruler, kind of like the Pope in a certain sense, but not with that much power. But he was a ruler. He says, for he was both king and angel or minister of the bottomless pit, according to Revelation. They were commissioned to torment men for 5 prophetic months. Okay, notice the word torment. Tormentar. That means that they weren't killing them. They were just tormenting, torturing. There you go. That was the word. Okay, so he would torture them, torment men for 5 prophetic months or 150 years, and we already looked at that, right? 1299 plus 150 is 1499. It says they were to be restrained from killing politically those who were the subjects of their oppressions, but they had power to torment them for 5 months. The 5 months were to close up the period of the fifth trumpet. I think it is very generally agreed that the Greek Empire was the people whom they were to torment. Who? The Greek people. The Greek people. Okay.
Yeah, Turkish didn't really do that to the Greeks at that time.
They really did. Yes, we're talking about history right here. Okay.
I know, because I had a Greek girlfriend. And she told me she didn't like Turkey.
But this is probably why.
Yeah.
Okay. Was the people from who they were to torment, and ultimately politically to put to death. So politically speaking, that political power was a death sentence for them. They were to be eradicated from their political positions. Okay. Now, here we have the 5 prophetic months still. It says, then did the 5 months of the Turkish torment on the Greeks commence, not until they had a king over them, or were gathered under one government. Now here it is. The Ottoman government was established about AD 1293 or 99, and according to Gibbon, Ottoman, that's who it was. That's who that king was.
Okay, there you go.
There it is.
We answered it now.
That's who it was. The king, Ottoman, first entered the territory of Nicomedia and commenced his attack on the Greeks on July 27, 1299.
1299.
Okay. The time 150 years would bring us to the 1449, when the fifth trumpet would end and the sixth begin to sound. So as soon as that trumpet ended in 1449, the sixth trumpet begins.
Wow.
Okay. Now it says, and the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns and the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel, which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which were bound in the great river Euphrates. And just a quick note, the Euphrates is found where?
We on that Bible, the King James, old King James Bible.
We no queda en grueso.
It goes, okay, first of all, it goes through is
Persia. It's in Mediterranean. I know it's in Mediterranean, but I don't know exactly what cities or countries.
it runs through the Arab states. All the Arabian Arab territories, it goes through there, and it ends in Turkey.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's where it's maybe established till now.
That's correct. And so notice even this symbol right here, the river Euphrates, is represented by the Turk. It's represented by the Mohammedans. Okay. So because it belongs to their territory, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
It would only make sense that it would have to do with that territory. It's letting us know, it's giving us that geological location of whom this belongs to, or who it's actually talking to, who it is referring to. Thank you, Tomas. All right.
Okay.
And the four angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour, a day, a month, and a year. And now it says, instead of tormenting, it says to slay the third part of men. Okay? To kill. All right? Now.
Alexa, stop the alarm.
Okay, we'll stop. We'll end right after this, okay? We didn't even get to where I wanted to get. Notice this 391 years and 15 days. Okay.
How many is that?
391.
That, remember that hour, the 15 days, and then a day is a year, and a month is, okay, we're gonna read about that. It says, the time during which they were to continue their conquest was on an hour, 15 days, a day, 1 year, a month, which is 30 years, and a year, 360 years. The whole amounting to 391 years and 15 days, allowing the first period, 150 years, to have been exactly fulfilled before Deocoses ascended the throne by permission of the Turks, and that the 391 years and 15 days commenced at the close of the first period. It will end, and this is that, remember that remarkable fulfillment that we read about? This is it right here. It was given. This was published in August 1st, right? 1840. All right, and it was supposed to be fulfilled, or it was fulfilled. According to the prophecy, it says, and the 391 years, 15 days commence at the close of the first period, which is 1499. It will end in the 11th of August, 1840, when the Ottoman power in Constantinople may be expected to be broken. And this, I believe, will be found to be the case. And it did. It ended on that day. And that was the remarkable fulfillment of prophecy. Because they had all the dates right, they said, well, if he's right here, he's going to be right on the coming of Christ.
That's
Okay?
what he thought.
That's what everybody thought. Everybody had believed it. Miller and everybody that followed him.
Yeah.
Now, just a small explanation here, and this is where we're in. We'll have to end because our time is up. It says, these added together, and this is so we know how that formula works. Okay. In case we're wondering about that hour, because we've been talking about the day, right? A day represents a year, a month represents 30 years, and a year would represent 360 years. Okay? But here, there's an hour. So how do we calculate the hour?
Wow, that's a good one.
It says these added together give 390 years. This is from the article written by A.T. Jones under the third angel. He wrote this article under the title "The Eastern Question." Okay, EQ. It says these added together give 391 years from July 27, 1449. The 391 years reach to July 27, 1840, but there is an hour yet. An hour is the 24th part of a day. Okay? Because there's 24 hours in a day, right? Okay, that makes sense. So the 24th part of the day, it says, and a day for a year, this would be a 24th part of a year, or 15 days. 15 days from July 27th extends to August 11th. Therefore, on August 11th, 1840, this period of an hour and a day and a month and a year would expire. Okay, so if we needed to put the formula together, the formula is 360 divided by 24 period, because it's the 24th part, equals 15. Okay? And that's how we calculate that hour. In case anybody wanted to know. Yeah.
Incredible.
All right, and so let's go ahead and end here, and we will pick up on the midnight cry next Sabbath.
And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation, and kindred, and tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven, and earth, and the sea, and the fountains of waters.